Dad about this recently, about ways to introduce good villains or ways to make good villains, and if you don't hate the villain, that's not really a bad thing, though, too. It's because there are a lot of villains out there who aren't hated and who are still really good, popular, and successful villains, like Emperor Palpatine. I never actually grew to genuinely hate him. Emperor Palpatine was more one of those villains where, this is what I said to my dad, is there's two ways you can introduce a successful villain, two methods. Like, this is the easiest way of doing it, in my opinion. To make a good villain is, like they did with Overhaul, basically make the villain so that he pisses you off. Make the villain so that it's someone who is morally flawed, just basically has flaws and has this ideology, or his actions genuinely anger the viewer. Like, say when they first introduced Dio to JoJo, basically gets involved with the protagonists, he immediately kicks a dog. Want to know something? While yes, it pissed me the hell off when I first saw it, it was genius on a character level, because that had immediately established to everyone who's watching, hey, this guy's a dick. You should not like him, and that's good, because then that just made Dio's defeat, or all the moments he got the shit kicked out of him, all the more satisfying. The second you bring your villain on screen and establish what or who they are, then that will instantly give the viewer a little taste of what is yet to come, or what this character is made of, the bread and butter of this character, what makes them a villain. And that's precisely why Dio was good, because we got that little taste, that little teaspoonful of what was yet to come. Dio obviously did much worse things than kicking dogs. He progressively got worse, and that's why he was a good villain, because the worse he got, the more he climbed up that ladder, the more we hated him. And that's genius. That was the one method of introducing a villain I'm talking about, the anger method. Rather than introducing a villain like, the pissed off route, which is good and effective, that doesn't necessarily mean every villain has to be like that. There have been villains who aren't like that and very successful, such as the Emperor. Compare how the Emperor was introduced to Dio. Dio was introduced as literally just some random kid. He gets thrown into this family of rich people and immediately takes advantage of their wealth and family and shit like that to basically ruin their lives. However, immediately as he enters their lives or the story, he pisses the viewers off. Like, literally, immediately, the second he gets in there. And compare that to how the Emperor was introduced. The Emperor rarely had any screen time when we first saw him. The only times you'd ever see the Emperor in the original trilogy were through just messages, backgrounds, references, stuff like that. And the moments you did see him on camera, ominous music played, characters like Darth Vader would bend a knee and they'd take orders. They'd worship him, right? And that's the thing, is once those moments hit, the Emperor didn't even have to talk, because the setting, the mood, the ambiance, everything screamed at the viewer, this man right here, this figure, this is the guy in charge. This guy is the one with all the power. You do not mess with this character. If you do, then you'll end up like these people, and then they, go to the fight scenes with the rebels and stuff like that. There's already an established ambiance and driving force, aka the Empire, which is subtly telling the viewers that, hey, these are the bad guys led by this character. It's silently telling you through visuals that the character or the villain in charge of all, everything you are seeing currently, every explosion, every battle, this whole war, every bad thing that is happening is because of this character. And the movie's doing that without even telling you. The movie's doing that without even a character walking up to the camera and being like, hey, the Emperor, that's a bad guy. He's the villain. No one says that in the movie, because the movie is already telling you that through what you're seeing. So when you do inevitably see the Emperor in the final movie, and once we do get to Sidious, right, it's not like Dio where we see the Emperor get hit or something like that and we rejoice. It's more just we're so hopeful and cheering on the hero, because we want to see everything that's happened come to an end. We want this tyranny to end, right? And that's the difference between the Emperor and Dio, is because while people hated Dio, people were still happy to see the Emperor lose, but they didn't hate him. Because while the Emperor never did anything to directly frustrate the viewers, like he didn't kill off any close characters that the fans were attached to, he didn't do anything like that. He didn't do anything to personally harm the fans. And that's why people weren't rejoicing when they saw him get punched or something like that, like Dio, right? It was more calming. It gave you a lot more solace, a lot more closure once the Emperor was defeated, because everything calmed down. There were no more fightings, there was no more explosions, there was no more intense action scenes. The journey had finally come to an end. And that's because the Emperor, rather than serving as a character to drive the hero to beat, more or less served as an obstacle for the heroes to overcome. And even then, he still turned out to be probably one of the most successful villains in cinema. And that is precisely the difference between introducing your villain. You could do it the Dio route, or the route that they've done with multiple other villains, or you can do it just like they did with the Emperor.